Park Dae-ho sat in the massive council chamber and watched the aliens ignore him. He had been doing this for 20 years now. The chamber was beautiful, made of crystal that sparkled with light from a dozen different suns. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, their bodies strange and wonderful. Some had tentacles. Some had wings. Some were just clouds of gas that somehow talked. Dae-ho was human. He looked boring next to them. Short black hair, brown eyes, a simple gray suit. He had learned long ago that humans were invisible here. Today was important. Today, humanity was asking for a seat on the council, a real seat with voting rights. Humans had been part of the galaxy for 340 years. They had worked hard. They had helped everyone. Surely that was enough. Ambassador Texlar stood up. He was tall and covered in green scales. His voice was loud and proud. The human request is denied. Humans serve the galaxy well as workers. They do not need political power. Other aliens nodded. Some laughed. One ambassador actually yawned. Dae-ho felt something break inside him. Not anger, not sadness, just a cold, clear understanding. They would never see humans as equals. Never. He stood up slowly. "Thank you for your time," he said quietly. Then he walked out. Nobody noticed. That night in his small apartment on the station, Dae-ho received a message. It was encrypted with codes that only a few humans knew. He opened it and read 3 sentences. Protocol Exodus is approved. Begin Phase 1. Make it silent. Dae-ho looked out his window at the stars. He had expected this. Earth had been preparing for this moment for a long time. He sent back one word. Understood. Across the galaxy, other humans received the same message. Kang Yuna got it while fixing a broken air recycler on Station Proxima. She was covered in grease, her hands deep inside a machine that kept 10,000 aliens breathing. The aliens who lived on the station never thanked her. They never even looked at her. She read the message on her data pad and smiled. Finally, Choi Taemin received it on his freighter, the Silent Promise. He was hauling food supplies from one system to another. His ship was old but reliable. He and his crew had been flying these routes for decades. They knew every shortcut, every safe path through dangerous space. The aliens paid them little and expected everything. Taemin gathered his crew. All humans, all tired. "We're going home," he told them. They cheered. The plan was simple. Humans would keep working for 6 more weeks. They would finish their current jobs. They would smile and nod and be invisible like always. But they would not train replacements. They would not write down their secrets. They would not explain how things really worked. Kang Yuna was an expert at this. She had been maintaining station systems for 15 years. The manual said one thing. Reality was different. Every station was unique. Every system had quirks and problems that only experienced engineers understood. She had fixed thousands of problems that were not in any book. She kept working, but she stopped teaching. When a young alien engineer asked her questions, she gave simple answers from the manual. The alien nodded, thinking he understood. He did not. Dae-ho spent his days transferring his work to alien diplomats. He explained things carefully, but he left out the important parts. How to read the mood of a difficult negotiation, which ambassadors needed flattery and which needed directness. The hundreds of small details that made diplomacy actually work. The aliens took notes and felt confident. They had no idea what they were missing. All across the galaxy, humans did the same thing. Medical researchers stopped their experiments but did not explain their methods. Technicians repaired ships but did not mention the constant adjustments needed. Teachers finished their classes but did not share their lesson plans. Translators completed their work but did not reveal how they handled the difficult parts. Humans had always been quiet. Nobody noticed they were being even quieter. Week by week, humans packed their belongings. They sent messages to family. They made plans. Earth's hidden ships began moving into position at the edges of human space. Everything was ready. On the final day, Dae-ho woke up early. He took one last look at his apartment. 7 years he had lived here. The furniture was simple. The walls were bare. He had never really made it a home. He had always known, deep down, that this place did not want him. He packed his single bag and walked to the docking port. Other humans were there. Engineers, doctors, teachers, pilots, cooks, janitors, technicians. Thousands of them, all walking quietly to their ships. Nobody stopped them. Nobody asked where they were going. Humans moved around all the time for their work. The aliens paid no attention. Kang Yuna was the last human to leave Station Proxima's engineering section. She looked at the massive machines one final time. She had kept them running for so long. She had prevented disasters that would have killed everyone on the station. The aliens had never known. They had called her work basic maintenance. She put down her tools and walked away. Choi Taemin fired up the Silent Promise's engines. His whole fleet was ready. 200 freighters, all captained by humans. They had been the backbone of galactic trade. Not anymore. Set course for Earth, he ordered. The stars shifted. They were going home. At exactly the same moment, every human facility went dark. Research labs, medical centers, engineering stations, diplomatic offices, trade posts, communication hubs, all of them empty. On Earth, President Yoon Ha-jun watched the reports come in. Millions of humans returning home. The evacuation was perfect. Not a single human left behind. Not a single alien aware of what had happened. Phase 1 complete, his assistant said. Yoon nodded. Now we wait. In the council chamber, Ambassador Thexelar was preparing for another boring day of politics. He noticed the human section was empty, but he did not think much of it. Humans were always working somewhere. On Station Proxima, the morning shift began. Alien workers arrived at their posts. Everything seemed normal. The lights were on. The air was flowing. The systems were running. Nobody noticed the humans were gone, not yet. It would take 3 days for the galaxy to understand what had happened. 3 days before the first systems began to fail. 3 days before the panic started. Daeho sat on a transport ship heading toward Earth. Around him, other humans were talking, laughing, celebrating. They were free. After 340 years of being invisible, they had simply vanished. Do you think they will notice? A young engineer asked him. Daeho looked at the stars passing by. He thought about all the work humans had done, all the problems they had solved, all the disasters they had prevented, all the invisible labor that had kept the galaxy running. Yes, he said quietly. They will notice soon. The ship jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, the galaxy continued on, unaware that its foundation had just crumbled. The machine still ran on momentum. The system still had reserve power. The medical treatment still worked from previous doses. But the people who understood how to keep it all going were gone, and they were not coming back. Not as servants, not as invisible workers, not ever again. The silent exodus had begun. The galaxy would learn what it had lost, and by then it would be too late to apologize. The first alarm rang on Station Proxima 7 days after the humans left. It was a small sound at first, easily ignored, but it kept ringing, and ringing, and ringing. A Quellan engineer named Veshtok slithered toward the atmospheric control room. His tentacles moved quickly across the floor. He was annoyed. These alarms were probably nothing. Humans used to handle them all the time, and they were just basic workers. How hard could it be? He reached the control panel and stopped. The screen was flashing red. The atmospheric recyclers were failing. The air on the station was slowly becoming toxic. Veshtok touched the controls with his tentacles. He had been trained for this, sort of. A human named Kang Yuna had shown him the basics before she disappeared. He remembered her patient voice, her careful explanations. He pulled up the manual. It was written in 17 different languages. He found his language and read the instructions. Step 1. Check pressure levels. He checked. They were wrong. Step 2. Adjust the valve to correct pressure. He adjusted. Nothing happened. The alarm kept ringing. The red lights kept flashing. Veshtok read further. The manual showed diagrams, numbers, formulas. It all made sense on the screen. But when he looked at the actual machine, nothing matched. There were pipes that were not in the diagram. Wires in different colors. Handwritten notes in human language that he could not read. He tried everything the manual said. Nothing worked. The air was getting worse. Across the galaxy, similar problems were starting. Small things at first, then bigger things. On the medical station Helios 9, Dr. Velshara stared at her computer screen in confusion. She was a brilliant scientist from the Vaxin species. She had 3 degrees in biology. She had won awards. She was not stupid, but she could not understand why the patients were getting sick. There was an outbreak of Krelian fever, a disease that had been eliminated decades ago. The treatment was simple. The protocols were clear. She was following everything correctly, except people were still dying. Li Jiwan had worked on Helios 9 for 12 years before she left. She had been the chief medical researcher, though nobody had called her that. They had called her the human lab assistant. Every day she had monitored disease patterns across 40 star systems. She had adjusted treatments based on tiny changes in the viruses. She had prevented 6 major pandemics that nobody knew about because they never happened. She had made it look easy. It was not easy. Dr. Velshara finally found Li Jiwan's old files. They were locked, encrypted. She could not open them. All she could see were the titles: daily mutation tracking, treatment adjustment logs, predictive analysis reports. There were thousands of files, years of work, all locked away. The fever kept spreading. Dr. Velshara kept following the manual. People kept dying. In the Krog Empire, things were much worse. The Krog were warriors, proud and strong. They had the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Their ships were massive and deadly. Commander Ralketh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fang. They were preparing to attack a border dispute. It would be a glorious battle. The engines were warming up for faster-than-light travel. "Engage!" Ralketh commanded. The ship shuddered. Lights flickered. Then everything stopped. The engines were dead. Not broken. Not damaged. Just dead. What happened? Ralketh roared. His chief engineer, a Krog named Broknar, looked terrified. "I do not know, Commander. The engines just stopped. They tried to restart them. Nothing. They checked every system. Everything looked fine on the computers. But the engines would not work. What they did not know was simple. Human technicians had been calibrating their faster-than-light drives every 48 hours. It was delicate work. The drives used exotic matter that shifted constantly. Without regular adjustment, they simply stopped working. The Krog had never known this. Why would they? The humans just did it quietly, asking for nothing. Now across the entire Krog fleet, every ship was dead in space. Thousands of warships floating helplessly. The mighty Krog Empire unable to move. Ralketh tried to contact other ships. Same problem everywhere. He tried to contact human technicians. There were none. They were all gone. For the first time in his life, Commander Ralketh felt fear. Choi Taemin sat in a comfortable chair on Titan Station, orbiting Saturn. He was drinking tea and watching the news feeds from across the galaxy. His crew was with him. They were all watching. The galactic shipping network was collapsing. It was beautiful to watch in a terrible way. Ships were colliding in space because traffic control was failing. Cargo was rotting in warehouses because nobody knew how to redistribute it. Planets were running out of food because the supply chains were breaking down. Humans had managed all of it. Every route, every schedule, every backup plan. They had been the invisible threads holding the galaxy's economy together. Taemin's first officer, a woman named Han Sora, shook her head. "They are so lost," she said. "They never even tried to learn," Taemin replied. "We offered to teach them so many times. They always said no. They said our work was too simple to need teaching." On the screen, a news report showed angry aliens demanding answers. Where were their supplies? Why were the systems failing? Where were the humans? Finally, someone had noticed. Back on Station Proxima, Veshtok had given up on the atmospheric recyclers. He had called for help. Every engineer on the station was now in the control room. They were all brilliant. They all had advanced degrees. They were all completely lost. The machine was still running, but it was making poison instead of air. They did not know how to stop it. The manuals were useless. The diagrams were wrong. The humans who had maintained this system for decades had left no useful notes. "We need to evacuate," someone said. "Evacuate? This is the main station in this sector. We cannot just abandon it. Then what do we do?" Nobody had an answer. In the Galactic Council chamber, Chancellor Morveth called an emergency session. She was a being of pure energy, ancient and wise. She had led the council for 200 years. She had seen many crises. This was different. This was everywhere. Every system, every station, every planet. All at once, things were falling apart. "Where are the humans?" she demanded. Ambassador Thexlar stood up. He looked uncomfortable.
"They appear to have returned to their home system, Chancellor. Why?"
"We do not know." They said nothing. They just left. "Contact them immediately. We need them to return." They tried. They sent messages to Earth, hundreds of messages. Urgent pleas, demands, orders, questions, no response. The humans were completely silent. On Earth, President Yoon Ha-jun read every message. His cabinet sat around the table watching him. "They want us back," he said. "Of course they do," Kim Nari replied. She was the official historian. She had documented every insult, every dismissal, every time humanity had been ignored for 340 years. "Everything is breaking. Should we respond?" someone asked. "Not yet," Yoon said firmly. "Let them understand what they have lost. Let them truly feel it." Bae Soon-ho, the former maintenance director, was monitoring the galactic networks. "Station Proxima will be uninhabitable in 3 days. Helios 9 reports 80 deaths from the fever outbreak. The Krog fleet is stranded. Trade has dropped by 60%. And it will get worse," Lee Ji-won added quietly. She was home now, safe on Earth. But she still thought about the patients, the sick and dying. It hurt her heart. But she remembered how they had treated her, how they had never valued her work. "Much worse," she said. Chancellor Morveth sent more messages. These were different, less demanding, more desperate. "Please respond. We need to talk. The galaxy is suffering." Still no answer from Earth. On Station Proxima, they finally evacuated. 10,000 aliens fled to ships and escaped before the air became completely toxic. A station that had operated for 500 years was abandoned in 3 days. The Krog Empire's enemies saw their weakness. Border raids began. Without their fleet, the mighty warriors were helpless. The fever on Helios 9 spread to 3 more systems. Dr. Velshara worked day and night. She was exhausted. She was failing. She wanted to scream. Where were the humans? What had they been doing that was so important? In the council chamber, Ambassador Thexler finally understood. He looked at the empty seats where human representatives had sat for centuries. Simple plastic chairs. No decorations. No importance. Those humans had been holding everything together. All of it. And he had called them adequate manual labor. He had been so stupid. So blind, so arrogant. Chancellor Morveth addressed the council. Her voice was strained. "We must find the humans. We must bring them back. The galaxy is dying without them. What if they refuse?" someone asked. Nobody answered. Because they all knew the truth. Humanity had every right to refuse, and there was nothing the galaxy could do about it. The Krog had never known this. Why would they? The humans just did it quietly, asking for nothing. Now across the entire Krog fleet, every ship was dead in space. Thousands of warships floating helplessly. The mighty Krog Empire unable to move. Ralketh tried to contact other ships. Same problem everywhere. He tried to contact human technicians. There were none. They were all gone. For the first time in his life, Commander Ralketh felt fear. Choi Taemin sat in a comfortable chair on Titan Station, orbiting Saturn. He was drinking tea and watching the news feeds from across the galaxy. His crew was with him. They were all watching. The galactic shipping network was collapsing. It was beautiful to watch in a terrible way. Ships were colliding in space because traffic control was failing. Cargo was rotting in warehouses because nobody knew how to redistribute it. Planets were running out of food because the supply chains were breaking down. Humans had managed all of it. Every route, every schedule, every backup plan. They had been the invisible threads holding the galaxy's economy together. Taemin's first officer, a woman named Han Sora, shook her head. "They are so lost," she said. "They never even tried to learn," Taemin replied. "We offered to teach them so many times. They always said no. They said our work was too simple to need teaching." On the screen, a news report showed angry aliens demanding answers. Where were their supplies? Why were the systems failing? Where were the humans? Finally, someone had noticed. Back on Station Proxima, Veshtok had given up on the atmospheric recyclers. He had called for help. Every engineer on the station was now in the control room. They were all brilliant. They all had advanced degrees. They were all completely lost. The machine was still running, but it was making poison instead of air. They did not know how to stop it. The manuals were useless. The diagrams were wrong. The humans who had maintained this system for decades had left no useful notes. "We need to evacuate," someone said. "Evacuate? This is the main station in this sector. We cannot just abandon it. Then what do we do?" Nobody had an answer. In the Galactic Council chamber, Chancellor Morveth called an emergency session. She was a being of pure energy, ancient and wise. She had led the council for 200 years. She had seen many crises. This was different. This was everywhere. Every system, every station, every planet. All at once, things were falling apart. "Where are the humans?" she demanded. Ambassador Thexlar stood up. He looked uncomfortable.
They appear to have returned to their home system, Chancellor. Why?
"We do not know." They said nothing. They just left. "Contact them immediately. We need them to return." They tried. They sent messages to Earth, hundreds of messages. Urgent pleas, demands, orders, questions, no response. The humans were completely silent. On Earth, President Yoon Ha-jun read every message. His cabinet sat around the table watching him. "They want us back," he said. "Of course they do," Kim Nari replied. She was the official historian. She had documented every insult, every dismissal, every time humanity had been ignored for 340 years. "Everything is breaking. Should we respond?" someone asked. "Not yet," Yoon said firmly. "Let them understand what they have lost. Let them truly feel it." Bae Soon-ho, the former maintenance director, was monitoring the galactic networks. "Station Proxima will be uninhabitable in 3 days. Helios 9 reports 80 deaths from the fever outbreak. The Krog fleet is stranded. Trade has dropped by 60%. And it will get worse," Lee Ji-won added quietly. She was home now, safe on Earth. But she still thought about the patients, the sick and dying. It hurt her heart. But she remembered how they had treated her, how they had never valued her work. "Much worse," she said. Chancellor Morveth sent more messages. These were different, less demanding, more desperate. "Please respond. We need to talk. The galaxy is suffering." Still no answer from Earth. On Station Proxima, they finally evacuated. 10,000 aliens fled to ships and escaped before the air became completely toxic. A station that had operated for 500 years was abandoned in 3 days. The Krog Empire's enemies saw their weakness. Border raids began. Without their fleet, the mighty warriors were helpless. The fever on Helios 9 spread to 3 more systems. Dr. Velshara worked day and night. She was exhausted. She was failing. She wanted to scream. Where were the humans? What had they been doing that was so important? In the council chamber, Ambassador Thexler finally understood. He looked at the empty seats where human representatives had sat for centuries. Simple plastic chairs. No decorations. No importance. Those humans had been holding everything together. All of it. And he had called them adequate manual labor. He had been so stupid. So blind, so arrogant. Chancellor Morveth addressed the council. Her voice was strained. "We must find the humans. We must bring them back. The galaxy is dying without them. What if they refuse?" someone asked. Nobody answered. Because they all knew the truth. Humanity had every right to refuse. And there was nothing the galaxy could do about it. 1 month after the humans left, the galaxy was burning. Not with fire. With chaos, with fear. With the slow collapse of everything that had seemed so permanent. Senator Vex Iron was not like the other council members. He was old even for his species. The Thalnari lived for 300 years, and he had seen most of those years. He had watched civilizations rise and fall. He had learned to look deeper than surface appearances. Now he was looking at humanity. Really looking for the first time. He sat in his office, surrounded by data screens. For 3 weeks he had been conducting an audit. A complete investigation of what humans had actually done in the galaxy. The council had ordered it, desperate to understand what had gone wrong. What Vex Iron found terrified him. Humans had not been simple workers. They had been the foundation of everything. The atmospheric systems? 94% of all stations relied on human maintenance. Not because humans had demanded it, because they were the only ones who could keep the complex, old, mismatched systems actually working. Medical research? Humans had been running 100% of the disease prevention programs. Every vaccine, every treatment protocol, every pandemic response. All of it depended on human doctors like Lee Ji-won, who worked quietly in the background. Trade and logistics? 87% of all shipping routes had been coordinated by humans. They had memorized thousands of routes. They had managed millions of schedules. They had prevented countless disasters. Technology maintenance? Humans had been calibrating and adjusting virtually every advanced system in the galaxy. The faster-than-light drives, the power generators, the communication networks, all of it needed constant expert attention. Emergency response? When disasters happened, who arrived first? Who saved lives? Who cleaned up the mess? Always humans. Translation? The computer systems that let different species talk to each other had been created and maintained by human linguists. Food production? 40 species had forgotten how to grow their own food. They relied completely on human-managed farms. The list went on. And on Vex Iron felt sick. The galaxy had not just lost workers. They had lost the people who made civilization possible, and they had called this work menial. They had called it simple labor. He started writing his report. The council needed to see this. Everyone needed to see this. On Earth, President Yoon Ha-jun sat in a secure conference room. Around him were the leaders of humanity's government, military commanders, scientists, historians, diplomats. They were watching the galaxy fall apart. Kim Nari, the historian, had the numbers. 17 stations abandoned, she reported. 43 systems experiencing major disease outbreaks. The Krog fleet is still stranded. Trade has collapsed by 90%. They are estimating 50 million deaths in the next month. 50 million. The number hung in the air like poison. We could help them, someone said quietly. We could, Yoon agreed. The question is, should we? Kim Nari pulled up her files. 340 years of records. Insults, dismissals, denied requests, ignored warnings. Humans begging for basic rights and being laughed at. They never listened, she said. We told them we needed better conditions. We asked for representation. We warned them that we were doing important work. They called us dramatic. They said we were exaggerating our value. And now millions are dying, a council member said. Innocent people, children, they did not make these decisions. The room fell silent. This was the hard question. The impossible question. Bai Sunho spoke up. He had spent 20 years maintaining stations across the galaxy. He had saved thousands of lives that nobody knew about. I became an engineer to help people, he said. Not to punish them. But we cannot just return to being invisible, another voice argued. We cannot go back to being treated like tools. Yoon raised his hand. We are not discussing returning. Not yet. First we wait. We let them understand fully what they have lost. A message came in. Another desperate plea from the council. This one was different. More honest, we were wrong. Please help us. Name your terms. Yoon read it and shook his head. Not yet. They are sorry they are suffering. They are not yet sorry for how they treated us. There is a difference, he was right. The messages from the council were all about their pain, their problems, their needs. Not once did they apologize for 340 years of disrespect. Across the galaxy, Chancellor Morveth was learning the same lessons Vex Iron had learned. The audit reports were coming in. Every department, every function, every system, the results were devastating. Humans had been everywhere. They had done everything, and the galaxy had never noticed because humans made difficult things look easy. She called an emergency session. The council chamber was half empty now. Many representatives could not travel because the ships were not working. Others were dealing with crises on their homeworlds. Senator Vex Iron presented his findings. He spoke for 2 hours. With every fact, every statistic, every example, the council members looked more horrified. Ambassador Thexelar sat in his ornate chair and listened. Each word was like a knife. He remembered dismissing the human request for a council seat. He had actually laughed. He had called them workers, not thinkers. He had been so stupid. Humans were not workers. They were experts, masters of their fields. They had been quietly holding the galaxy together while people like him took credit and gave orders. When Vex Iron finished, the chamber was silent. We need them back, Chancellor Morveth said. Whatever it takes. Whatever they ask, we need them. They are not responding to our messages, someone said. Then we send a fleet, a military commander suggested. We go to their system and make them negotiate. Make them? Vex Iron said sharply. You want to threaten the people we desperately need? The people we have already wronged? We need solutions, not debates about feelings. Chancellor Morveth made a decision. A terrible decision. A desperate decision. Send Inquisitor Jalmet with a battle fleet. Not to attack, to negotiate. But humans need to see we are serious. It was a mistake. But she did not know that yet. Inquisitor Jalmet was a Crothian, a species known for harsh efficiency. He had served the council for 50 years. He was good at solving problems. Usually with force, he assembled a fleet of 20 warships. Enough to look impressive, enough to scare. He set course for human space. When we arrive, they will listen, he told his crew. They have to. Their former colleagues are dying. But Choi Taeman's merchant fleet saw them coming. The humans had sensors everywhere around their space. Very good sensors. Military-grade sensors that the galaxy had not known humans possessed. Taeman sent a message to Earth. We have incoming. 20 Council warships, led by Inquisitor Jalmet. Admiral Shin Minho received the message. He was commander of Earth's defense fleet, a fleet that was not supposed to exist. The galaxy thought humans only had civilian ships. They were wrong. For 200 years, humanity had been preparing, building, planning, just in case the galaxy turned hostile, just in case they needed to protect themselves. Now that day had come. Minho activated the defense systems. Across human space, weapons came online, shields activated, fighter craft launched from hidden bases. When Jalmet's fleet reached the edge of human territory, they found a wall of steel waiting. 300 human warships, advanced armed ready. Jalmet stared at his screens in disbelief. Where did they get military ships? We built them, came the response on an open channel. Admiral Minho's voice was calm. We have been building them for a very long time. This is Inquisitor Jalmet of the Galactic Council. We demand to speak with your leaders. You demand nothing, Minho replied. You may request politely. The Council warships did not move. They were outgunned and they knew it. Wished request. To speak with Earth's government, Jalmet said slowly. His pride hurt with every word. Request denied. Return to Council space. If they want to talk, they can send an unarmed diplomatic ship. One ship, no weapons, no fleet. You cannot dictate terms to the Galactic Council. We just did. Turn around now. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, humiliated, Jalmet ordered his fleet to retreat. The Council had tried to intimidate humanity. It had failed. Badly. On Earth, President Yoon watched the confrontation. Han Sora, the xenoanthropologist, stood beside him. They still do not understand, she said quietly. They think we are weak because we were patient. They think we were servants because we were kind. They are learning, Yoon replied. Slowly, painfully, but they are learning. Another report came in. A plague on the Delphian homeworld. A food shortage on Vaxis Prime. A complete power failure on the Outer Rim stations. The galaxy was dying, and humanity watched, and waited, and wondered what kind of people they wanted to be. The choice was coming soon. Help or abandon, forgive or forget, be merciful or be just. It was the hardest choice humanity had ever faced. 3 months after humanity left, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Station Proxima, once the jewel of the Galactic Council, was a ghost town. The atmospheric systems had failed completely. The beautiful crystal chambers were dark and cold. 17 other major stations had suffered the same fate. Billions of credits worth of infrastructure abandoned, but the stations were just the beginning. Dr. Velshara had not slept in 4 days. She stood in the medical bay of Helios 9, surrounded by the dying. The Krellian fever had mutated into something worse. Now 3 other diseases were spreading alongside it. Her staff was exhausted. Her supplies were running low. She had tried everything. Every treatment in the database. Every protocol in the manuals. Nothing worked the way it was supposed to. Finally, in desperation, she had tried to break the encryption on Li Jiwan's old files. She had worked on it for weeks. She had called in the best computer experts in the galaxy. Today they had cracked one file. Just one. Velshara opened it and started reading. Her hands began to shake. The file was a maintenance log. Just 1 day's worth of work from Li Jiwan. A single day 3 years ago. That day, Li had monitored 47 different disease strains across 12 systems. She had noticed a mutation in the Krellian fever virus. A tiny change barely visible in the data. Based on that change, she had adjusted the treatment protocol by 0.03%. 0.03%. Almost nothing. Velshara would have never noticed such a small mutation. She would have never thought to make such a tiny adjustment. But that tiny adjustment had prevented an outbreak that could have killed millions. One day, one human, one of thousands of small decisions that Li Jiwan had made every single day for 12 years, and this was considered simple medical work. Velshara sat down and cried. They had been so blind, so stupid, so arrogant. Across the galaxy, others were making the same discovery. The Krog Empire was in chaos. Without their fleet, they were vulnerable. Warlord Kreshenuk, a raider from the outer systems, saw his opportunity. He attacked. Krog colonies fell. Krog people died. The mighty warrior race was helpless without their ships. Commander Ralketh tried everything to fix the faster-than-light drives. He read manuals. He consulted experts. He even tried to contact the human technicians who used to work on his ship. They did not respond. Why would they? The Krog had treated them like servants, had paid them almost nothing, had mocked their soft appearance. Now Ralketh would have given anything to see those soft humans again, to watch them work their quiet magic on the engines, to ask them how they did it, but it was too late. His empire was burning and he could do nothing. On Earth, Admiral Shin Minho watched the reports. His fleet was ready, powerful. They could sweep aside Warlord Kreshenuk's raiders easily. They could save the Krog colonies. Some of his officers wanted to help. They are being massacred, one captain said. Civilians, families. Minho felt the weight of command. I know. But we have our orders, we watch. We wait. For what? For them to truly understand it was cruel. Minho knew it was cruel. But Earth's government had decided. The galaxy needed to feel the full weight of their mistake. In the council chamber, Chancellor Morveth was losing control. The council met in a temporary facility now. Proxima was gone. This new building was small and plain. It felt wrong. Half the council members were missing. Some were dead. Some were dealing with disasters on their homeworlds. Some had simply given up and gone home. Those who remained were desperate. We must do something, Ambassador Thexlar said. His proud voice was quiet now, broken. My people are starving. The trade routes are completely collapsed. All our people are suffering. Another ambassador agreed. We need the humans back now. They will not respond to our messages, someone else said. We have sent thousands, nothing. Senator Vexiron stood up. He looked old now, tired. Perhaps because we have not said the right things. What do you mean? All our messages have been about us. Our suffering, our needs, our problems. We have asked for help. We have offered payment. We have even threatened. But we have not apologized. Apologized? Thexlar said. For what? Vexiron stared at him. For 340 years of treating them like tools instead of people. For ignoring their expertise. For denying them basic rights. For dismissing their contributions. For being blind and arrogant and cruel. The chamber fell silent. They were workers, someone muttered weakly. They were holding our entire civilization together, Vexiron shouted. And we never noticed. We never thanked them. We never valued them. They asked for one seat on this council. One vote, after 340 years. And we laughed at them. Thexlar looked at his hands. He remembered that day. He had been the one who denied the request. He had been so certain that humans were beneath the council. What do we do? Chancellor Morveth asked quietly. We apologize, Vexiron said. Truly, honestly, not because we need them, because we wronged them. On Earth, President Yoon received a new message. This one was different. It came from Chancellor Morveth personally. It was not a demand, not a plea, just words. We were wrong. We failed to see your value. We failed to respect your contributions. We failed to treat you as equals. We are sorry, not because we need you now, though we do, but because you deserved better then and we did not give it to you. Yoon read it 3 times. He showed it to his council. It is a start, Kimnari said. But is it enough? No, Yoon replied. Words are easy. We need to see change. Real change. He did not respond to the message. Not yet. Instead, something unexpected happened. Prime Minister Theranos of the Delphian Assembly made a decision. The Delphians were a peaceful species. They valued knowledge and art. They had always been kind to humans, or at least not cruel. Their homeworld was suffering from a plague now. Millions were sick. Food was scarce. Theranos could have sent another message, another plea. Instead, she did something brave, something unprecedented. She took a small ship, unarmed, alone, no guards, no weapons, no fleet. She set course for human space. When she reached the border, Admiral Minho's sensors detected her immediately. A single Delphian ship, broadcasting a message on repeat. I request permission to speak with Earth's leaders. I come alone. I come in peace. Minho was surprised. She came by herself?
Yes, sir.
No escort, no weapons.
Just her.
Minho contacted President Yoon. We have a visitor. Prime Minister Thoranis.
She wants to talk. Alone?
Completely alone, sir. Yoon thought about this. It took courage to come alone. To trust that humans would not simply turn her away. Or worse, let her through, he ordered. 2 days later, Thoranis stood in a conference room on Earth. She had never been to Earth before. Few aliens had. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds. President Yoon entered with his council. Kim Nari, Lee Ji-won, Bai Soon-ho, Admiral Min-ho, others. Thoranis looked at them. These were the people her civilization had dismissed as simple workers. She felt ashamed. Thank you for seeing me, she said quietly. Yoon gestured to a chair. Please sit. She sat. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Thoranis took a breath. We were fools, she said simply. We saw your kindness as weakness, your competence as servitude, your patience as lack of worth. We were wrong. Completely wrong. Why did you come? Kim Nari asked. Her voice was cold. Because sending messages is easy. Coming here alone to face you directly, that takes honesty. I wanted you to see that at least one of us understands, that at least one of us is truly sorry. Your people are dying, Lee Ji-won said. Is that why you are sorry? Thoranis met her eyes.
Yes, I will not lie to you.
We are suffering terribly. But I was wrong before the suffering started. I just did not see it until everything fell apart. She pulled out a datapad. I brought something. Records from the Delphian archives. Every interaction we had with humans for 300 years. I read them all. Every single one. She showed them the files. Humans asking for better working conditions. Denied. Humans requesting safety, equipment. Denied. Humans suggesting improvements to systems. Ignored. Humans warning about potential problems. Dismissed. You tried to help us, Thoranis said. Over and over. We never listened. Yoon looked at the records. He had seen similar files. Kim Nari had them all documented. But seeing a council member admit it was different. What do you want from us, he asked. I do not deserve to ask for anything, Thoranis replied. But I am asking anyway. Not for the council. Not for the government. For the billions who will die for sins they did not commit. For the children who do not understand why they are starving. For the sick who do not know why there is no medicine. The room was quiet. Very quiet. Help us, Thoranis whispered. Please. 6 months after humanity left, the Galactic Council was dying. Not metaphorically. Actually dying. The council chamber had been relocated 4 times as stations failed. Now they met in a small facility on a minor planet. The beautiful crystal halls of Proxima were a memory. The grand assembly of thousands of species was down to a few hundred desperate representatives. Half the galaxy's space stations had been abandoned. Medical care had collapsed on 60 worlds. The Krog Empire had lost 30% of its territory to raiders. Trade was almost completely gone. Food shortages were everywhere. 17 species were facing extinction, not in the distant future, right now. This year, the death toll had passed 200 million and was climbing every day. In the temporary council chamber, Chancellor Morveth looked like a shadow of herself. The glowing energy that made up her body was dim and flickering. She was old, tired, defeated. We are finished, she said quietly. Without the humans, we cannot survive, nobody argued. It was simply true. On Earth, President Yoon Ha-jin sat with his cabinet for the 100th time. They had been debating for 3 days straight. The question was simple. The answer was not, should humanity help? 200 million dead, Bai Soon-ho said. His voice was hollow. How can we just watch? They watched us suffer for 300 years, Kim Nari replied. She was holding her files, her records of every injustice. They laughed at us. They used us. They threw us away when we asked for basic dignity. Those people did that, Lee Ji-won said quietly. The children dying of fever did not. The families starving did not. The sick did not. So we should forget what happened? Pretend it was fine? No, Lee Ji-won said firmly. We should remember. But we should also be better than they were. The debate went on, and on. It was the hardest decision humanity had ever faced. Some argued for justice. The galaxy had treated them terribly. Why should humans save those who had never valued them? Others argued for mercy. Yes, they had been wronged, but letting billions die made humanity no better than the Council. Admiral Shin Minho spoke. I'm a military man. I think in terms of strategy. If we let the galaxy collapse completely, we gain nothing. We will be alone in the ruins. If we help, we have leverage. We can demand real change, can we? Someone asked. Or will they just use us again? That was the fear. That humanity would return as saviors and end up as servants again. Hansora, the xenoanthropologist, had been quiet. Now she spoke. I have studied every species in the Council. I know how they think. Most of them are truly broken now. They understand what they lost. They understand what humans are worth. If we set clear terms, they will accept them. They have no choice. And if they break those terms later? Kimnari asked. Then we leave again, Minho said simply. But this time they will know what comes next. They will not risk it. President Yoon listened to everything. He had his own opinion, but this decision was too important for one person. All of humanity needed to be part of it. We vote, he said. All of Earth, every citizen tomorrow. Should we help the galaxy? The next day, 5 billion humans voted. The results were close. Very close. 52% voted yes. 48% voted no, humanity would help. Barely. But there would be conditions. Non-negotiable conditions. Yoon began writing the terms. Kimnari helped. So did every member of the cabinet. They worked through the night. In the morning, they broadcast their message to the galaxy. Not just to the Council. To everyone. Every planet. Every station. Every ship still functioning. President Yoon appeared on screens across the galaxy. His face was serious. His voice was clear. People of the galaxy, humanity has heard your suffering. We have watched your civilization collapse. We know you are desperate. We know you are dying. He paused. We will help you, but not as we were before. Not as invisible servants. Not as workers you ignore and dismiss. We will help as equals, or we will not help at all. He listed the terms. First, humanity would receive full council membership. Not 1 seat, 3 seats, with full voting power including veto authority. Second, every human contribution would be recognized and valued. Fair payment. Fair treatment. Fair respect. Third, a new council charter would be written. No species could be exploited. No people could be treated as lesser.